Firstly, thank you, and it's such a privilege to speak here today, especially as it's about a subject that I'm really passionate about. Catwalk cake, or the trends in cake and dessert. When you hear the word trend, you automatically think of fashion. Every season has a new color, fabric, or statement piece that's shown on the runway and then seen in the high street shops shortly after. Believe it or not, this happens in the cake and dessert world too. Over the last few years, cake trends have changed dramatically. We've gone from classical fondant cakes with intricate piping details and sugar flowers to normal and fresh flowers and buttercream coatings, or no coating at all. I like using the royal weddings as prime examples to show this transition. Take a look at William and Kate's royal wedding cake in 2011. A stunning, huge creation made by Fiona Cairns, 8 tiers of traditional fruitcake covered in fondant and marzipan, adorned with royal icing details, lace, and sugar flowers. It's an absolute masterpiece. Now compare it to Harry and Meghan's cake earlier this year, where Claire Patak designed a very simple, elegant display of 3 separate cakes. The buttercream has a rustic finish to it, raw, textured edges, and decorated with fresh peony flowers. An absolutely stunning arrangement, but totally at the other end of the spectrum as the last cake. Less decorative cakes has become hugely popular over the last few years, and whilst they seem effortless, they are in fact more difficult to achieve. Here is one of my own cakes that I made a few months ago, where I've used buttercream to create texture on the surface, and then delicately placed a few decorations on top. I can tell you now that this was one of the most difficult cakes to make, not only to make it look effortless, but because more of the surface is exposed, there's no room for errors. We've seen this wave of simplistic design in other industries too. Scandinavian interiors have taken over every independent coffee and clothes shop, but also our homes as well. We're using lots of greys, golds, metallics, and marbles, and lots of plants. And as a result, the cake industry has also taken this on board. So much so that cupcakes no longer have a swirl of buttercream on top, but a whole succulent garden instead. As technology advances, the cake and patisserie world has become spoilt with new ways to create and decorate. 3D printers have enabled chefs around the world to create incredible molds that are used for their signature desserts. Mini entremets in all different shapes and sizes are now appearing all over the place. Desserts such as these could never have been made 10 years ago because we didn't have the equipment to do so. In general, trends are influenced by what's going on around us in the world. The wave of LGBT and pride has showered us with color, especially in the cake world. Rainbow cakes and unicorn cakes have been at the top of the list, and this particular unicorn cake design has been the most popular of the last 2 years. My sister, who's a fashion designer for kidswear, also told me that her unicorn t-shirt was a bestseller. So this trend isn't just in the cake world. Like anything, the brighter and more colorful, the better. In fact, anything that takes a good photo seems to create a buzz, which leads me to my next point: how social media has affected the baking world. Now, I'm going to focus mainly on Instagram, purely because it's the most visual platform. I use Instagram as a portfolio of my work and a visual representation of my brand. I make sure my images are very bright, very clean, and of high quality. And in fact, sometimes it takes me nearly an hour just to edit the lighting of a video, just so it can look right on my page. But at the end of the day, it's worth it, because a lot of business and interest comes through this platform. People sometimes refer to me as an Instagram baker, This term is widely used because, indeed, there are people who bake purely for social media. People are actually surprised when I tell them my cakes are for ordering. But this is what made me realize running a cake company isn't just about selling cakes. It's now managing your audience, keeping them engaged, uploading videos of cake decorating, and even teaching people how to bake. I now have a YouTube channel where I literally teach people how to make sponge cakes, buttercream, and people can comment and make the recipe themselves. A couple of years ago, I posted the following video on Instagram. It's a short time lapse of me constructing a classic Fraser cake. For me, the process of this cake is fairly normal because I've done it and seen it multiple times. However, for my followers, who may have never seen something like this, it was fascinating. This video was reposted all over the platform. Pages with millions of followers reposted it, even some unrelated to cooking. And as a result, my followers went up. Now, I always have to remind myself that Instagram isn't a followers game, but nowadays, even the value of your business can be determined by your following statistics, so it's quite an important factor. I actually attended a Facebook conference earlier this year in Belgium, and I learned that whilst images are powerful, it's all about video now. In fact, 1/3 of the time spent online is watching video, and our initial concentration is averaged at 3 seconds. Scary. People love video. So let's bring this back to baking. Photographing a beautiful cake is one thing. Now let's look at the reactions from a video. I posted this real-time clip of spreading some ganache over a cake and letting it fall. It got nearly 200,000 views for something that I pretty much do every day without thinking about it. But I mentioned the words drips, chocolate, and satisfying. There is something really satisfying about watching this, and I've just had you engaged for 40 seconds. Another trend that's had us hooked at our screens is the mirror glaze. This actually makes me laugh because people had made it out like this was a brand new way of cake decorating, a millennial way of cake decorating. But us patissiers know that it's a classic pastry technique that's been around for years, and yet people are obsessing over watching the process. Hence, mirror glazes became one of the top 2017 cake trends. Satisfying moments is one of the most popular hashtags on Instagram and social media, and therefore influences what people post about. The use of hashtags and reposting means that trends spread very quickly. Take the drip cake, for example. These have been sweeping the online space and is, in fact, one of my signature decoration and most popular cake designs. That's one of my cakes on the left. When I first tried out this design, people went crazy for it and the orders started to flood in. I then made the decision to upscale this design and offer it for weddings. When you think of a traditional wedding cake, you probably imagine something like this. A classic design with flowers and ribbons. So when I showcased this at a wedding fair, you could say I stood out a little. This design isn't for everyone, but nowadays people are looking for something different at their wedding, and therefore wedding requests became more frequent. This design is also what attracted Harrods to start displaying my wedding and celebration cakes. So the more on trend you are, the more attraction you get from clients. Instagram is full of creatives, and brand new trends appear all the time. You may have seen these number and letter cakes gaining popularity. These are made using large cut-out biscuits sandwiched with buttercream or ganache and decorated with all sorts of toppings. I've actually made one of these myself just to try it out. And what I realized is that as beautiful as they look, cutting and serving it is a really messy job because of the hard biscuit and filling. And from a taste perspective, they are delicious, but do shortbread biscuits need all that buttercream on top? They're buttery enough. So this verifies what I already know and what Jamie said earlier. baking for Instagram prioritizes look over anything else. I myself think taste is just as important, so I tried to put look and taste on the same level. So for example, going back to rainbows, I would actually avoid adding food coloring to my cake batter because I think it affects the flavor. So if I wanted to do something rainbow themed, I'd add it in the decoration so you don't taste it as much. Sometimes I make something and won't post it on Instagram purely because I don't think it's good enough to show. This chocolate cake, for example, is a double-baked, it's actually gluten-free, and it's the most delicious chocolate cake that I make. But the photo won't excite anyone, and therefore it doesn't make the cut. The world has become obsessed with food. We're eating with our eyes. Close-ups of Nutella-stuffed cookies, freak shakes with donuts and slices of cake and toasted marshmallows on top, and candy floss-topped ice cream. The more Instagrammable, the better. And therefore, dessert parlors and bakeries have taken this on board to simply gain popularity and boost their business. It's amazing how a platform such as Instagram has had such a huge impact on the food industry. Instagram is also why baking is cool again. Traditionally, baking's associated with the older generation. Now, I'm not saying you can't be cool and old at the same time. Mary Berry and Delia Smith will always be the baking queens. But the younger generation has embraced this fashion, making it a trend in itself. The Great British Bake Off is one of the most popular TV shows at the moment, and it's encouraging more people to get into the kitchen and bake. Even offices throw their own bake-offs. Now, I'm classically trained in French patisserie, so I swear upon butter and eggs, but we can't ignore the unstoppable rise of veganism. It's quite incredible how nearly every bakery, coffee shop, and restaurant now cater for vegans. And guess what? Being vegan is cool, and it's become the new trend of 2018. Bloggers and Instagrammers have influenced the younger generation to become more aware about health and sustainability by promoting veganism. We're now using almond milk in muffins, cashew nuts in cheesecakes, and avocados in buttercream. Now, I'm not going to lecture you on how baking is a science and you need eggs to make a cake, because you can't deny it's quite incredible to see what people have made with vegan ingredients. It's also inspired top chefs to incorporate veganism into their creations. I personally haven't jumped on the bandwagon quite yet, but I am keen to try at some point. Vegan baking has also influenced certain flavors to becoming more popular. Banana, which apparently is a good substitute for eggs. Matcha, a Japanese green tea with health benefits. And almonds, where people are actually replacing flour to make gluten-free alternatives. And for those who are happy with cake the way it is, lemon and elderflower headlined cake flavors of 2018 due to the royal wedding in May. The increase in the use of edible flowers in cakes and desserts have also influenced floral flavors such as rose and lavender. So what's in line for the future of cake and dessert trends? We've started to see cake decorators play around more with buttercream. Here is an example of a concrete cake, where playing with temperatures creates shading and texture on the surface, which makes it look just like a concrete block. These are typically decorated with very few decorations to really make a statement, going back to the simplistic design I was talking about earlier. Bakers are now using buttercream to paint onto a cake, creating new textures and visual effects. These cakes are quite literally works of art. And the best part is that you can create it completely bespoke to your clients. For those who work with fondant, hand painting with coloring has a similar effect, and the cakes don't need as many decorations on top because the painting speaks for itself. New ingredients are being discovered all the time. There's a newfound love for the sugar substitute isomalt. The benefit of isomalt is that it doesn't dissolve as quickly as sugar does, and it's difficult to crystallize when heating it up and therefore making it easier to work with. Whether it's making geode stone cakes or abstract shapes, bakers and chefs are loving the endless possibilities of this ingredient. So, we've seen naked cakes, we've seen drip cakes, and now we'll be seeing naked drip cakes. This is a cake I actually made in the summer this year, taking the rustic design of a naked cake and giving it a little makeover, creating a really unique result. With more weddings taking place in alternative venues such as converted barns, breweries, even fields, it really fits perfectly. Meghan and Harry's deconstructed cake has resulted in dessert tables becoming a favorable choice when it comes to wedding and celebrations. Again, the trend of doing something alternative is growing in popularity, and so to have one statement cake isn't always the go-to option. I love creating these spreads as it's a chance to display all kinds of cakes with a common theme and flavor. But this alternative display doesn't stop there. You'll now begin to see donut walls, meringue and macaron towers, and cheesecakes, as in tiers of cheese. Also, interactive desserts, such as nitrogen ice cream bars, flavored oxygen, and rolled ice cream stations. The list is endless, and the possibilities are endless, which makes it such an exciting world, and I'm so excited to see what's to come in the near future. Thank you.